What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of At a Glance, a series in which I give you an appetizer sample or glimpse into a particular faction in 40k, and the goal behind it is to help you decide if you want to look further into the Force on your own, or maybe even start collecting that Force as well. So up on the chopping block by viewer request is the Silver Skulls Space Marine chapter. Decent amount of S's there. Now the Silver Skulls are a second founding successor to the Ultramarines. And if you do some digging, you're going to find that their fluff currently kind of states out with some ambiguity, meaning it's kind of unconfirmed that they're Ultramarine successors, and it's kind of suspected they're second founding and stuff like that. But in the older publications of stuff with the Silver Skulls, and the way it's always kind of been, is that they're second founding Ultramarine successors. So just that's what it's heavily implying without making it just hard and set in stone truth anymore. So I kind of don't see any real reason that there was a need for that at all. I think there's plenty of chapters which are shrouded in ambiguity already, and having one that's pretty concrete is almost refreshing nowadays. So it's heavily implied, and basically what it is second founding successor to the Ultramarines. Now the Silver Skulls are pretty interesting because they have a lot of stuff written on them. They have publications for themselves, whether it's short stories or in a novel. They are obviously represented in the Space Marine Codex, even if it's just a picture of one of their models or a picture of their color scheme. They are in some Xenos codices. They're in older publications of a codex, like Codex Armageddon. And they've been in older magazines. So they actually have a decent amount written on them for a successor chapter. It's one of those rare instances that a successor chapter and a seemingly random successor chapter, Silver Skulls, have a good amount written on them. Now, it has changed from, back in the day, you could say, to now. The writing on them has kind of petered out and kind of picked up a little bit, but it hasn't quite got to the level it used to be for the Silver Skulls. In fact, I would say the Silver Skulls used to be one of the poster children for Space Marines for how much they were kind of shown and everything and written about. So it's kind of interesting. It's one of those situations where you can actually get more info on the Silver Skulls than you thought. So with that said, what are the Silver Skulls about? Well, being a second founding chapter, they have a long and glorious history. And the Silver Skulls have a lot of battle honors and a lot of rolls of victory, you could say. They are considered to be one of the most well-renowned second founding chapters in existence, and highly praised as such, which is a tall order, you could say. So that's pretty cool. And they're also a chapter that other Imperial forces, if you had to describe it as another Imperial force, if you read up in the fluff about them, that they are kind of synonymous with victory. Now, it's not a guarantee that the Silver Skulls are going to win every battle, but whenever the Silver Skulls show up, victory usually follows. Even though the Silver Skulls have a very superstitious way of doing things, and a very particular way of doing things that kind of gets on Imperial commanders' nerves, their delivery of victory is worth it, essentially. So with that said, the Silver Skulls are a very superstitious chapter. They actually put a lot of faith and power and trust in their Librarium, which is kind of at odds with how librarians are kind of treated in most Space Marine chapters. They're given due respect and awe, but they're not really given the same level of trust, you could say, that the Silver Skulls have for their librarians. The librarians of the Silver Skulls really do shape the history and shape the future of the Silver Skulls chapter, because they guide them to particular battlefields and what battles they should join in on and whatnot. And that's, kind of part of the superstitious nature. One of the things that the Silver Skulls are known for is not committing themselves to battle unless they feel absolutely that the battle is worth it and that they're going to win, essentially. And that sounds a bit odd and a bit pompous, maybe. But what they do through basically the magic of 40k psychers, through divination and consulting the Imperial Tarot, is that they see in their mind where the hand of the Emperor wills them to fight. And they won't fight in basically any other battle, short of being ambushed or something, outside of that. And it leads to other Imperial forces kind of getting annoyed, because there they are fighting day in and day out, battle after battle after battle, winning or losing, they're fighting it, doing their best, and the Silver Skulls are just hanging out in orbit or something, not doing anything in their eyes. But then out of nowhere, the Silver Skulls commit to battle, because the Librarian prognosticators state through the Imperial Tarot, this battle we will achieve victory, and this battle is meaningful. And they commit to battle out of nowhere, and then suddenly the nature of the campaign shifts. They kill an enemy commander, they inflict horrendous casualties on enemy forces, take over something. The campaign has a very definitive shift in the Imperium's favor once the Silver Skulls do commit to battle. So the results are worth the wait, essentially, for the Imperial commanders, but it's still no less annoying, I'm sure. So that's basically the way these Silver Skulls do things. And their librarians also, or not all of them, but they have a certain group of librarians that also tend to the chapter's spiritual well-being, like a chaplain. And they do have chaplains, and the chaplains are given their respect and not kind of kicked to the side or anything like that. But the librarians also do something very similar. So they're kind of like librarian chaplains. And that's also something pretty interesting. So basically, if you like librarians and want to use them or anything like that in your force heavily, the Silver Skulls are probably the chapter for you. And with that said, their battle honors show victory after victory after victory, which is why they're so well renowned. So that is the Silver Skulls' way of doing things, and it's considered very superstitious because that's how they do it. They consult that and nothing else. That's their road to success, basically. Now, they're very savage and stubborn in battle, but to get them to battle, they have to see all the portents and odds and the divination in their favor, and that is meaningful. So, with that said, the Silver Skulls color scheme is simple yet effective, and it's not their original color scheme. Their original color scheme was basically pure silver. And the reason I say that is because there is some more modern or more recent artwork for Silver Skull Space Marines in which they look basically all silver, or at least the commander looks basically all silver. So, it could be lighting, could be a variety of things, but really that's not what their color scheme is. The color scheme is simple yet effective, and I feel while it's very solid and looks great, it doesn't really have any pizzazz, you could say. It doesn't really have super defining features that maybe they would get passed over. You know, it's a heavy metallic color scheme, so that has to be something you really like. And if you do, then you have to like the fact that it's not very glitz and glamour. For example, Celestial Lions gleam gold, right? Look cool, and they're not all metallic, but heavy metallic color scheme of gold. You have to like that, and it's gleaming. The Silver Skulls, on the other hand, are very dull in comparison for metallic luster-wise. Not dull as in boring, but luster, they're very dull. So what we're looking at, and as you've seen, is their shoulder pad insets are black. The rest of their armor, minus the chest emblem and helmet, are like a dark iron or a gunmetal that's a bit darker, like a iron type of color, for example. Their chest emblem and their helmets are the bright silver of the Silver Skulls, quote unquote, and their weapons tend to be black. So it's a simple yet effective color scheme. Their chapter symbol is a stylized skull in silver. Who would have thought Silver Skulls? And the reason I bring that up is because sometimes freehanding in metallic colors is a bit difficult. You should be able to find something online to download and kind of print out your own, decals on decal paper. Take a little bit of extra steps, but you should be able to get a stylized Silver Skull pretty easily in that way if you just look online a little bit. And the other reason I bring it up is because one of the things that's in the fluff, should you want to do it, is the squads of the companies are named after gemstones. Typically, it's like Squad Octavian, right? Because Sergeant Octavian leads the squad. But in this case, it would be like Squad Garnet, or I don't know, Squad Emerald or something. I have no idea. I'm spitballing because they don't tell you every single stone that they're named after necessarily. And the reason I say that is because the eyes of their chapter symbol will be picked out in the color of that gemstone. So if it's a red gemstone, the skull's eyes will be picked out in red. If it's a blue gemstone, they'll be picked out in blue, and so on. This can be something that's a little bit too much to do and doesn't look quite right on the model in your opinion, but it may look perfect in your opinion. So that's something else you can do to add a little extra level of detail to your Silver Skulls. The other thing that's kind of interesting is their squad markings denote company, because the squad markings are colored for the company. So if you look at a red assault squad marking, that's 3rd Company. A green tactical squad marking would be 4th Company. A yellow Devastator squad marking would be 2nd Company, and so on. So this is something that You could do a variety of ways. One of the easiest ways to do it is just use the white decals supplied in the kits. It comes on the transfer sheet for different chapters and squad markings. Just use the white one and then paint over it. You're putting it down onto a black background. Most of these colors will be pretty light in comparison. It'll be pretty easy to clean up if you go outside the lines. Conversely, if you know you want to represent Third Company, you could just make use of the Dark Angel squad markings. This is there in red. So that's a couple of ideas for you. And with that said, it's a very simple but effective color scheme. I like it. It is one of those color schemes, however, that it doesn't stand out like severely. It looks the part. It looks good. It's very tight and very much a effective color scheme, but could be glossed over when you compare it next to brighter color schemes or more intricate color schemes, or golden or bright silver overall and whatnot. So I feel the chapter maybe doesn't get as much attention because their color scheme is effective, but I'm not going to say bland. It just doesn't pop when you put it next to some other chapters out there. But there are people who are fans of the Silver Skulls and very much will make notice and take notice of them. So with that said, the codex in question is a no-brainer. It's a Space Marine codex. That's the codex to utilize. And whether or not you want to say that they are for sure Ultramarine successors, which they pretty much are, they definitely adhere closely, with the exception of their Librarian Chaplain and the Librarian Prognosticars, to the Codex Astartes. So the Ultramarine chapter tactics would be the way to go for the Silver Skulls. With that said, kit-wise, bits and kits, anything that's generic Space Marines from GW or Forge will work just fine. They used to have shoulder pads sold by GW for the Silver Skulls. They're discontinued, it looks like. They says they're no longer available on the website. I don't know if they'll ever come back or not with them. They were not as wide as the current shoulder pads are, so it would look a bit off when you put it on a Space Marine and had it not quite be the same thickness as the other shoulder pad. You could tell. But sculpted skulls are not a rarity in 40k, so you should be able to get by with other sculpted skull shoulder pads if you want to make use of those for the chapter symbol, and then do some decal stuff that you find online or whatever, and print out yourself in it to kind of complement that. One thing I will say is librarians and librarian chaplains, there's no rules for a librarian chaplain. You could just feel the librarian and maybe give them some more skull motif stuff going on to kind of signify that role as kind of the librarian chaplain. It's not like it's an official title per se. You could say it is, you could say it's not. It's just the role the librarians take up. They have the librarian role, and they take up the role of a chaplain as well, in addition to the chaplains doing it. So it's up to you how you want to represent that on the battlefield, if at all. And this is a chapter that I think definitely could benefit from getting a a supplement book for it. I don't have one, and I just want to close with this because if this sounds like something the Blood Ravens would also do, that's pretty correct also. And it's just an example how one chapter can feel like multiple chapters, and how a supplement book could help multiple chapters even though it's just sold for one, right? So this is a case where I think that could have worked out very well, and we'll probably never get to see that. But even still, you can represent the Silver Skulls just fine with the Space Marine Codex. No need for a supplement. It would have been cool if there was one for them, but no need for it. Anyways, that's it for the Silver Skulls. So thanks for sticking through it. I find them a pretty cool chapter. They were written about for a decent amount in the past, and they have some other stuff written for them a bit more recently and whatnot. So this is one of those rare opportunities to really get to dive into and experience a successor chapter in more detail, because it doesn't really happen too much outside of stuff like Crimson Fist and Black Templars, for example. Anyways, that's it. So thanks for sticking through it. Any question, comments, or requests, you can leave it in the comment section. And until next time, take it easy.